Welcome to our October installment of Prescott Area Arts and Humanities Council's My Life in Art. I'm John Meyer, President of PAC and Executive Director of Prescott Center for the Arts. Our next guest, November 17th, here in Stage 2, is Bruce Lanning. So please join us here, and we are next to Peregrine Books, but the entrance is in the alley. At PCA in November is the first Readers Theater presentation, Lettuce and Lovage, here in Stage 2, and the PB Library and the Chino Valley Senior Center, November 5th through the 8th. From November 12th through the 22nd, we have Neil Simon's classic comedy, Barefoot in the Park. And over the Thanksgiving weekend, we present an encore presentation of Love Letters with J.P. Perpich and Joanne Robertson. And in the gallery is our annual holiday wrap. Our guest today is an actor, director, playwright, does audio recordings of books, and has been a theater administrator. She's worked extensively in Los Angeles and now here in Prescott, and PCA has had the honor of her talents as an actor in Harvey, The Lion in Winter, and The Other Place, and as director of Enchanted April. Please welcome Melanie Sapecky.
Yay, thank you, John.
So I will start off with my usual first question, which is, where were you born, and if different, where did you grow up?
I was born in Tucson,
Okay.
so I'm actually an Arizona native.
Awesome.
So I was born in Tucson, and then when I was young, moved to Phoenix. And
On
then
your own?
Went through, yes, went through high school in Phoenix, then back to the University of Arizona, Bear Down. And where I studied acting in a really amazing acting program, and it was so good that I went there to be a lighting designer and ended up being an actor because I was working in the student union flipping omelets and couldn't afford my tuition, and people started offering me money to act, and so I started working as an actor.
Very nice.
Then dropped out of college.
Right.
And then moved to LA and lived there for about 1 million years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you made it back.
Yeah, me too. It's awesome.
All right, so how long have you been in Prescott, and what was your reason for moving here?
I've moved here in the summer of 2011.
Okay.
And I moved here because my entire life in LA fell apart. So it's a very cheery story.
Yeah. Well,
With
we'll
a
get
happy
to it.
ending.
Okay. Well,
Yes,
that's
but
good.
really it was just, I was working for LA Superior Court and also doing, I usually maintained a full-time job because for me, starving artist just isn't, it's not my
Desirable?
thing,
Yeah.
right? It's not my thing. I've never been one to couch surf and all that stuff. So I was like, a homeowner and a whatever,
Right.
and I always wanted to, and I like those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like civil service. I know, crazy. And so I was working for LA Superior Court, and then it was LA County, and they were fat rich.
Mm-hmm.
And then the state took over the entire court system, and the state, of course, is bankrupt. And so 2 months after the state took over the court system, we started getting like IOUs for our salary. And so
wow.
that basically I couldn't afford to live there anymore, even though
Right.
on paper I was making a good salary, but I wasn't getting any money. So
Yeah,
I
that makes it a little
left
difficult.
it all. I left all that glamour
I
to
know
come
how
to
you could
Prescott.
do that, so. So you just needed a less expensive place to live?
My
Then
mother
LA?
lived here and had a house, and I had a kid, and
okay.
and I was broke, and so I moved in with my mom.
There you go.
I came back home to my mommy.
All right, that's a good reason. So, and perhaps maybe your mommy was responsible for this, but what was your first significant exposure to art?
My dad is a civil engineer, so my first significant exposure to art was when I went to college. Because not that there just wasn't, there was some music. We all studied some music.
Okay.
I started with the accordion in the second
No
grade.
kidding. Doing bar mitzvahs?
So that's why I
or-
say, was I exposed to art? No,
Yeah.
I was not. I played the accordion in the second grade.
Well, there's art
It's
to that. That's music, so,
fantastic.
okay.
Yes. 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 So
You did not do any acting when you were in high school or grade school or anything
no.
like that?
I was forced to in high school because I sort of started hanging out and doing tech. I did tech. I wanted to be a lighting designer.
Right.
And I did a lot of props, and my family, my mother will tell you that, we did a production of The Man Who Came to Dinner, and the curtain opened, and my family, all my family's clothes and our Christmas tree and our whole house was on that set. And I loved it. And I went to college to be a lighting designer. I really did not want to be an actor. I had no interest, but I was forced in that program. If you cannot specialize until your junior year.
Oh, okay.
So all the techies have to take all these acting courses, and
Gotcha.
all these actors have to take these tech courses, and you have to learn how to do everything. It's really one of those amazing programs where you get really well-rounded. You really have a respect for what it takes to put on a production, and you learn a lot, and so that was it. And so when I started being an actor, when I say I was getting paid to act, it was like bitterness. It was like, I can flip omelets at the student union, or I can go to this acting thing. Well, the omelets, I smell like mushrooms, and this acting thing,
Smell like other actors.
yes, I smell like old costumes, so
Yeah.
I picked that.
So in college, you were getting paid acting gigs?
I was. I started getting paid.
How did that? What was the nature of those things?
Well,
Can you
it
talk
wasn't
about
pole
it on,
dancing, or I would have gotten my degree. It was. There were some. They weren't equity professional, but they were paid acting gigs, and there was one in particular. It was a dinner theater there in Tucson.
Oh, okay.
And they did really great stuff. And it was 300 seats in the round, and it was amazing to work there. Even though it was dinner theater, it was awesome.
Were there equity guest actors?
No, but it was, no.
Okay.
But they paid you. I started getting 300 a week as a non-equity actor.
Nice.
In my junior year, and I was like, could be some
What were some of the
money.
roles you played?
Oh, I
back then?
played Sorrel, Bliss, and Hay Fever, and I was in Gaslight, and they did a lot of old stuff, and they did a lot of Alan Ayckbourn, so I did that, but did Bedroom Farce, and wore a towel, and Only.
Okay.
And my mom brought my granddaddy to see it. He was nervous the whole time, even though I was locked in there with Velcro and, sewn into that towel, but my granddad, he can't tell you what that show was about, except that his baby was on the stage wearing only a towel, and every time I moved, he was like ready to catch it. Poor thing.
Right. So we kind of covered the next question, which was what is your educational background? So anything beyond? Was it which one? What did you go to?
University of Arizona.
Arizona.
Beardown.
But you didn't get the degree.
I did not get the degree.
And that was because
Dad, I'm sorry, I dropped out. I did. I know. I don't have a degree.
And you were the only one. So no one else
yes,
has ever
no one else
not
has
completed their
ever.
degree before.
Yes, yes.
Was there
It's
anything
embarrassing.
beyond that?
Not university, but I've studied a lot. I've studied with a lot of course, because it never ends. It's a craft, and so it never ends. And so I've studied, and did a lot of training in LA with some really awesome,
Such as?
amazing people. Well, probably people you wouldn't recognize, but
Okay.
Art Menke. I studied Shakespeare with Art Menke, and Dakin Matthews, who has worked at the Vatican, and he's an amazing, brilliant man, and he's a brilliant actor. And he really did the most for me for opening up all of that stuff, because the way he approaches text is that he can almost quote the canon by heart, and he knows that he's brilliantly intelligent. But what he does when you're in class with him is he hands everybody a resource, and he has like 12 different resources, from the Bloom to the Isaac Asimov has a theory about Shakespeare and stuff, and has written, and he hands everybody, and then some old school stuff. And everybody looks up the passages, and you all come to a consensus as a cast as to what that passage means.
Okay.
And so that was really cool, because it took it from the oldie moldy, stuffy, gross, nobody knows what that means, and it's, the old English, to a really cool way to research a role and investigate and figure it out and decide in a collaborative way what that means to that cast in that moment in time, and that was cool. So I stayed
truly
with Dakin.
an ensemble offstage
Yes.
and on,
Yes.
which is kind of an interesting concept.
And who else? Jeannie Hackett and Antaeus Company, which is an amazing classical theater company, which I look younger than I am. So the cutoff was like 35, and I was about 10 years older. And they let me in because they thought I was younger. So I got to study with the youngins, and so that was pretty cool. We did a lot of Chekhov and stuff like that. All that stuff that you don't usually get to perform.
Okay. So you are a director,
Yes.
an actor,
Yes.
a playwright.
Yes.
You record audiobooks,
I
and you
do.
have been a theater administrator. Which of those 5 do you enjoy the most?
It depends on the day. Sometimes I enjoy being a playwright a lot until it's like 5 hours into the day and you're stuck on one line, and then you go, I sure wish sure wish that I smelled like mushrooms right now at the Student Union. That's a kind of a stupid thing to do. But the audiobooks is great. That pays my bills really.
Right.
You know, that's really good money. And I can work out of my house, and
Right.
so that's works for the family.
Sure.
And so and that's hard too. 8 hours in the book. It all is very solitary, except when you're collaborating on stage. I mean, a lot of the business is solitary, and even in film, you know, you're not. It's not a true collaboration. Like everybody has their job, and everybody does their job, and together they collaborate. But it's not collaborative. You're not. You know, you're not working it out with people on set. You wait until they're ready. They mic you, and then you sit there, and then you talk, and then they, you know, tell you to go to the craft services table and leave people alone while they set up the next shot.
Right.
And so it's not a very collaborative business, oddly enough, I have found,
Okay.
except in theater. Theater is very collaborative.
Well, yeah. There's much choice for that.
Yes,
so.
and so that's what I love to do.
Okay.
But the other stuff is fun too, but it's a little lonely sometimes, John.
I can understand. So if you were allowed to, if you had to choose one of those 5, and you could not do the other 4, you could only do one of them, which would you do?
I don't think I could choose. I think I'd be a playwright.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the creative process is different for everyone, and sometimes different for each of the aspects that we just discussed or identified. What is your creative process in general, since they would cover perhaps the 5, and if it's different from any of the 5 aspects in your theater life, how do they differ? So we're going to first go with, is there a commonality?
This is why you need to stay in school. I have no idea what he said.
Is there a commonality?
None.
Is there a commonality in the creative process that covers all 5?
Yes.
And are there things that are inherently just
Yes.
that a creative process that fit only one of those? So what would
I would think that the thing
be?
that the overall that is research is sort of like doing your homework.
Right.
I think that it's because for me it is a craft, and I know some people can just come in and Billy Crudup was 2 weeks in Hollywood and he got discovered, and that just doesn't happen. But he has no craft, and so he doesn't have I'm sorry, Billy, but he doesn't have a career because he doesn't have the craft.
Right.
And so I think that it's putting the work in, and part of the work is the research, and the research goes across all of them. All of them require some homework, whether or not you're playing one character in a play, or if you're responsible for all the characters because you're directing, or you have to voice 47 voices in a book. You have to read the book, you have to sort of research, you have to research pronunciation of things, and so I think research goes across all. I would say then that the way that they differ is whether or not they're collaborative.
Okay.
You know, that the audiobooks can be collaborative if you're reading with another partner. And I do that too. I have a partner that I work with for a particular author, and we co-read, and that's fun. And we do collaborate, and we do discuss things, and we have to come up with character voices that are similar that we can both remember and do. And directing is collaborative. Acting, I have to be collaborative when I'm acting. It's the only way that I can. When I was doing the other place, and somebody said to me, "Oh, it's all you," and I was like, "It's not." Oh no, it's not all me. No, it's not. I talk the most, but that does not mean that it's my play.
Absolutely.
And if everybody doesn't show up and be on their game, then I can't do the only way I can do what I do is if everybody's doing their part.
Sure.
And their part together, and I rely on people on stage, and I enjoy that. I enjoy meeting people on stage in a live situation and creating in that moment. And I think the other ones are kind of lonely. Playwriting is very lonely, very lonely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is lonely and weird. like in the booth, I talk to myself, but if somebody else has written and I get to make up these characters and they're going to call the authorities. And I get to talk to myself and make up these things. But when the voices are in your head, they're in your head and you have to get them out. It can be crazy. It can make you crazy. Yeah. Like sometimes I'm like, I just need to go walk around, you know, the supermarket and just see other people.
Do you ever, obviously it would depend on the book and the characters, do any of those characters, traits that they may have in your figuring out how you're going to voice them, do you ever pull from other actors that you might know, or just people from life that might remind you of those characters?
Sure, yeah, sometimes. Yes, especially when they're like really sweet, because that's just not in my nature. And so if they're not sarcastic, I don't know what to do. So I have to go watch TV and, you know, go like, oh, that's a good one. That's a good personality.
As an actor, do you have a preference to perform on stage, in film, or television? Which do you prefer?
I prefer stage. I hate film and television. I do. Yeah. It's a good living if you can do it, and it can be fun. But as I said, it's not collaborative, and it's and in film and television, the actor is the last consideration. No, second to the last. The script is the very last consideration. They see it as sort of a guideline, and so that can be sort of. It's kind of lonely. I mean, it is kind of lonely too. You know, you're alone in your trailer and you're sitting there, and then they yell at you and you run down the steps and you do your thing, and then they send you back, and it's back and forth and back and forth. I will say though, well, because it's collaborative, soap opera work was my favorite other than live theater. Okay. I thought I would hate it, and I have never been so happy on a film-ish set in my life. It was the best ever. And I had this scene that went into the commercial break, and you know, they don't do anything in post. They don't have time. They shoot it on that day, and it like films. It goes up the next week or whatever. And so we're standing there, and they start piping in the cheesy music, and I swear I saw angels. I was like, I don't know why I studied classical theater. This is where I need to be. I loved it so much. It was so cheesy and wonderful and great. And the actor, because it's so fast and dirty, they have to learn a script every day, and they have to rely on each other and to get each other through a scene. Sure. Because they're not, you know, they don't really know those lines. They just sort of know those lines, you know, and so they depend on the other actors. So it's the most, it sounds funny, but it's the most collaborative I found working in that industry. Okay, and what soap opera was this? That was Days of Our Lives. Okay. I was on Days of Our Lives in a recurring role, yes, I was. Okay. And then they killed off my employers and they never asked me back. I was so upset. I was like, not Ben and Lexi, not with the mass murderer. Come on, they need a nanny more than ever now. Yeah. What, probably speaking more stage-oriented, but what attracts you to roles? What is it about a certain role or that goes, I'm going out for that role. I'm going to go audition for that? You know, it really varies, and it varies where I am in my life and what's going on. And last year I wanted to do The Other Place because it was such a challenging role, really challenging. I knew that would push me so far. I'm having a stroke. It would push me so far beyond your comfort zone. Yes, and so that, you know, sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's because you know, there's a role that I played that there were only 25 lines, and I thought this will be so much fun because I'll go out there and I'll do my thing, and I'll go back and screw around backstage and have fun, and then I'll come back on stage. And then they made me stay on stage the whole time, and I was like, oh, well, okay. So sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just a really fun role. Sometimes it's just sometimes it's a personality. I like not to carry a show. I like to have it be more of a balanced cast, balanced line load, and have everybody just sort of doing their thing. So it's not like I don't have this sort of star ego yet. Okay, we'll keep that in check. Okay. Now, in past conversations you and I have had, you've told me that, and I believe it was an agent, told you that if you gained weight,
You would
Yes.
actually work more, especially on television.
Yes.
What was the reasoning for that? Why would he say something like
Because
that?
I wasn't fat enough to be the fat, funny girl. I was very, when I first started working in the industry, I was very thin and buff and vavoom. And actually, a lot, when you go to an audition in Hollywood, you know, there are 25 people in the
sure.
room who
At
look
least.
exactly like you.
Right.
I mean, exactly like you.
Yes.
Like you think,
Yes.
the rumors about my mother were true. Like there are 24 other people who look
Sure.
exactly like that. Then there are 10 who look pretty much like you.
Right.
And so it's you have to be prepared for that, and you have to, you have to just be prepared that sometimes I lost a job because my nails were too nice. I mean, it comes down to that. They have to make a decision. I've lost roles because my eyes were blue. I've lost roles because whatever. It's just they have to make a decision. And when you have 25 people, at least 2 of those people are going to be similar enough to where if it's between those 2 people, they have to come up with something really stupid. So I was very, and I went out for a lot of, it just sounds so stupid to say now, Heather Locklear roles. And so, but I don't have that, I'm just too sarcastic to book those roles. And so then I had this surgery, I was put on this medication. I gained 40 pounds in 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awful. Everybody was on suicide watch for me because in Hollywood, that's, if you go up to a size 2, it's bad.
Right.
And so I went up to a size 16, and people were like, I didn't even know it went that high. So it actually, that's when I really started booking a lot of work. And, but I wasn't quite fat enough, John. So they told me that I needed to gain 50 pounds.
Wow. Good Lord.
Yeah, I was like, that can't be healthy.
No.
I'm just thinking that that's not a good reason to get heart disease. But so I didn't, and and that agent fired me because I was not willing to gain the weight.
Goodness.
Yeah, they said to me, if you are not committed to your career, we can't help you.
But we see all the time, and the first person that comes to my mind is Melissa McCarthy.
Right.
Who's a very heavy woman.
Right.
Obviously was getting all these comedic roles.
Right.
Back, just one right after the other,
Right.
the TV series as well. And now there's been a lot of publicity about her losing weight.
Right.
Is that going to keep her from getting more comedic roles? Or is she set now? She's kind of, it's a standard. We all know what she can do now, and we expect that of her.
It depends. It depends on how much of a pain in the ass she is to work on set. If she's a pain, or if she's really cool on set, people will cast her anyway. But the thing that makes her funny is her fatness. In Hollywood terms, that's what makes her funny. It's funny to watch her running alongside.
Right.
Sandra Bullock carrying with an FBI badge and
Right,
tripping
right.
and falling, and the fat is funny. And so it's possible, but that's why they wanted me to gain weight, because they were like, you could work, you could be a superstar, and they listed the 4 other fat actresses in Hollywood, and I was going to be number 5.
Gotcha.
But I was not willing to gain the weight.
Gotcha.
Because, I mean, God, like seriously, come on.
Well, yeah.
It's not a very realistic lifestyle out there, you
Right.
know. And there's people are like, why don't you do something with your hair out here? Like you ever get your hair cut? And I'm like, I've never been allowed to decide what my hair looks like. I go on set, it's dyed blonde, it's cut in a butch cut, and I play a prison guard. And then the next thing, they dye it red and they put extensions in because then I'm a whatever. And it's like, I just go like, I'm like a blank canvas that they just do things to. So it's a funny thing. Well, you just do what they tell you to do, with your appearance,
Right.
tell you how you can cut your hair and what colors you can have it and all that stuff. It's a crazy business.
Yeah, just a little bit. How did you get into audio recording, and other than the money, what do you enjoy about it? You talked a little bit about the
Right.
collaboration part of it, but how did you get started in that?
I did a little voiceover in LA. I was doing voiceover as well, and then audiobooks was just starting to hit. This was like 20 years ago, before it was anything. When the industry first started, it was just a few people recording, and mostly it was, I think lawyers started this business, and then so they were just recording it and having their friends do it, and it was for truck drivers going across country, so they didn't care about the quality. Then they started, begrudgingly using actors. And when that happened, I was already doing some voiceover, and somebody suggested that it might be fun, and it's not for everybody. That's
Sure.
the thing about it, is that it's like, you think, I can read out loud, and I read for the blind, and that's good. But this is like a marathon. It's like sprinting versus marathoning, because it is 8 hours a day in the booth.
Right.
8 hours a day for 6 days
Right.
in a row in the booth, talking to
Absolutely.
yourself. It can get.
Now, do you do voice only, or do you also put the script together? I imagine the book's got to be edited to some degree.
No, that all comes from the, pardon me, that all comes from the publisher.
Okay.
So it's whatever the final, excuse me, I'm a trained actor, I can do this voice thing, I'm proud of you. The publisher does that, and the publisher gets a recordable version, which is usually the final version of the book. And it has to be word for word.
Okay.
And
Well,
so,
sure.
yeah, like for copyright reasons.
Right.
So they do all that. And if they abridge it, they have an abridger do it. And so you don't have anything. You're just the monkey behind the mic.
So you never get to talk to the author. It's all just through the publisher.
No, you can, once they cast it, then sometimes,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it depends on the audio publisher. Sometimes the audio publisher is just like, they released it to us, and it's, you just do whatever voice you want. Well, because I'm a playwright, so I'm like, well, what do you think they had in mind here? Can I talk to them? And they're like, no, it's out of their hands. Just pick a voice. Wow. And sometimes we collaborate. Like the one that I work with so much for the last 10 years. So she's very collaborative, and she actually writes sort of with our voices in mind now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, mostly Patrick, because the ladies love Patrick. So, yeah.
Okay. In terms of playwriting, what is your writing muse? Where do you get your ideas? What compels you to sit down and start writing?
That depends too. It just depends. Sometimes I went to a writer's retreat last March, and I just knew I was going to write this. I was just going to write this thing, and it's the idea I've had in my head for a long time. And I had written about 10 pages of this full-length play for my friend Danny Murphy, who was a disabled actor. He was quadriplegic, and we started on this project, and then things sort of went as they do, hot and cold. And then Danny moved away to Florida, and then a year after I moved here in 2012, I think, maybe it was 13, I can't remember. Anyway, Danny died. And so this project that we had been working on has been really working in my brain, and the characters are talking to me, and I just knew I was going to write that. Got there and wrote a completely different full-length play, completely different, just like, I just have to honor the voice. I just have, whoever's talking the loudest gets to come out, is basically what it is. And so sometimes you can have these plans, but you got to get through something else. Some other idea has to get, out on the paper, so that then this other idea can come forward.
Do you find when you start writing that, I know sometimes I've sat down and written a play. I know, I certainly know what's going to happen. I probably have an ending. But I sit down and start writing, and man, just goes off in another direction. You find that as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes it's because the characters inform you.
Yes.
And it's like, I wrote a screenplay, and it was like, you knew what it was about, and you have to plan these things, because you're, given like things to people who might want to produce it, and so they want to know, and so it's like, well, it's about this, and it's about that, and this person is the lead, and then I'm writing it, I'm like, ugh. And I'm like telling this character, no, you can't. I've already said no, but he just came to the forefront and took over the screenplay, and it's really fun.
Right, and I know I have either read or heard someone like a Neil Simon who says, it's like he's not writing the play, it's just the dialogue is coming through the characters, through him. You find that as well?
Yes, because, and especially for dialogue, because it is the it's so character specific that it's that if you get to think about it too much, then I will start to I start to muddy it.
Right.
It just comes through, and it's a conversation that's happening in my head between two people that don't exist until I put them on paper.
Right.
And sometimes I eavesdrop in coffee shops and restaurants. So be careful what you say, because I'll use it.
I was fortunate enough in college to take a short story writing class with Daniel Keyes, the man who wrote Flowers for Algernon, which became
That
Charlie,
movie.
right, with Cliff Robertson. And he talked to us one time about, he gets an idea, thinks it's wonderful, awesome, whether he writes it down or not, but he won't pursue it unless it keeps coming back into his head, and he waits months and months, and it's still there after months. He knows he needs to write about it. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, yeah, because that's then you start to get clarity about it, and it becomes this really strong compulsion.
Right.
Like you have to sit down and write it, or it will keep you up at night. And then sometimes things are fleeting. You sketch down a note. I have a tablet, and I sketch down a note, and I'll even sketch down a small conversation or an idea
Right.
or a location, and then I go back and look at it, and I go, well, I don't even know
What that
where
meant.
I
Right,
was
yeah,
when I
sure,
wrote
right.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not happened, and I can't even remember the genesis of that.
Right.
But also, I will say that that it's a matter of clearing that, to get it out, so that whatever is meant to come up can come up. Otherwise, it just gets blocked, and I get confused. And
Right.
yeah,
You talked about collaboration earlier. What is collaboration like for you when you are a playwright? Is it a different kind of collaboration than when you're a director and an actor, and how so?
I think it's similar because there are people who I trust and there are people who I trust to. This is what I need. There are people who I trust to tell me the absolute God's honest truth, just really down in very sweet, non-personal ways, but just that I know that they will tell me the real truth of it, with the idea in mind of understanding what I was trying to do.
Right.
And then they tell me whether or not it's working, and if it's not working, then they'll give me ideas how to fix it, because they know me and they know my style and my, and what I sort of how I work. And so then they will help me to form that, and give me ideas how to maybe fix things that they think aren't quite working, because they can see what I was shooting for. Right. And I really rely on that always. As I have a friend who got me into playwriting. She insisted that I start playwriting, and she's a very accomplished playwright. And she wears a size 8.5 shoe, and I can tell you that because it's usually up against my butt. So I'm always like, all right, all right.
It's good to have someone pushing you.
It's very nice
in that way.
Because otherwise, she's like, you just need to do it, and not just do it, just start doing it. But she saw something, recognized something,
Right.
and she's just doing, providing somebody else, another artist, an opportunity that she got, which is really what it's about. The thing that I hated, I'll just go back to Hollywood. One of the things I hated about Hollywood was the competitive nature of Hollywood. It gets really tedious, it's like everybody's just trying to make a living, and it's not personal. So, I'm really sorry I'm fatter than you and I booked the role. I'm really sorry my eyes are blue and I booked the role. I think that's fantastic that your eyes are brown and you booked the role. But it's like, that's, I think, the difference too, is that in theater and in art, in playwriting and these things that are collaborative, it's not competition. And it's like those, and it's good to lift other people up. It makes you a better artist if you can recognize something in someone else and help them. I think that informs your art as well, in that you learn to recognize in yourself the ways that you need to improve or change, or what your strengths are, and what makes you castable, and those things.
Okay. That takes me right to my next question.
Fantastic! It's like we had
timing.
a conversation previously, which we didn't.
We didn't. You've been the recipient of an LA Weekly Award.
Yes.
A Charlie Award.
Yes.
And we're twice nominated for what you call the prestigious Garland Award.
Yes, it's a very prestigious award.
Okay.
It is.
So,
I will say.
what roles won you those awards and nominations, and how do you feel about awards in the arts?
I think awards in the arts I think it's kind of, I don't know. It's such a
Too much
subjective.
self-adulation,
Well,
or-
that, and it's
Or
very
the competitive thing you were
subjective.
talking
Yes, it's
about?
it makes it sort of competitive, and then it's a subjective.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
It's a subjective. It's just like. So how do you judge that? Like, it's really fantastic, and the reason that I put that on everything is because it because.
Well, it draws
It gives me
attention.
credibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which it shouldn't, but it does.
Right.
And so an LA Weekly Award is a very prestigious award to win in LA. I will say that I was nominated for that more than one time, but won it with a cast as Best Ensemble.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
that one I'm really proud of because we worked our rear ends off and we worked together, and that was what that cohesive cast was. What it was an amazing experience, and it was noteworthy. I'm sorry that it has to be award based, but yeah, LA Weekly Award is a prestigious award. It's very competitive. People talk about how many nominations a theater company got, how many blah blah blah.
Well, it helps sell tickets. If
Yes, it
nothing
does.
else.
It absolutely does, and
Sure.
especially there.
And it is part of the business side of all of that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So was nominated for that.
And
I was
what
also.
show was that? Are we allowed
It was
to
called
divulge?
It was called Bush is Bad, and it was a musical review about the Bush administration, and it was hilarious, but it was not very complimentary, and so. It was kind of, it was a lot tongue in cheek, but some of it was mean spirited, and I don't like that either. So, so that I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the work that we did,
Right.
but the show was not. I don't go like, yeah. So, and then I was nominated for Enchanted April. I was nominated for the Garland Award, which only goes to 75 actors in the entire Southern California area. So 75 actors are nominated for that award. That is an astounding nomination because there are about 1 billion actors doing about 6 billion shows.
Right.
And I was nominated for that in a very small theater north of Pasadena called Sierra Madre in an old converted, it was used to be a movie theater in a very small town. It was a very small town, tiny town, but in this big sort of metropolis area. And so I was really proud of that because nobody wanted to work in that theater. It was a beautiful theater and I had some wonderful talent there. But everybody was like, if you go to Pasadena, you've gone too far.
Oh.
So it's like that cute little show that you're doing on that, And I was nominated at that theater twice. And so that, to bring notoriety to that theater was great. And I got that nomination for, called Elizabeth Rex. That was, I got one nomination for the Garland for Elizabeth Rex, and that was the role I did. I had 25 lines. 25 lines, and I was nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Wow.
So there are no small roles, because 25 lines is nothing. That's not even, that's barely even gets credit on the program.
Right.
So, and then for Lottie in Enchanted April, I was nominated for that as well, yes.
Okay, and the Rex movie, is it W-R-E-C-K-S or
No,
R-E-X?
it's Elizabeth Rex, R-E-X.
Okay.
It's about Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
that they called her Elizabeth Rex because she was,
Yeah.
she was a tough broad.
Yes.
And so that was a really cool show, but yeah.
And the Charlie Award?
The Charlie Award was, I won that one for Enchanted April.
Oh, also.
And that was a sweet local, that wasn't like a big prestigious award or whatever. That was a smaller, not the whole LA area, but that was like the Pasadena, whatever area. So, but that included Pasadena Playhouse and that stuff. So, still pretty swanky.
Yeah.
What are you saying, John?
I'm not saying
I have
anything.
a career.
Is there anything you'd like to do artistically that you haven't been able to do up to this point?
I just take it as it comes.
Yeah.
I don't have a bucket list of roles,
Okay.
or anything like that. I would like to shoot the screenplay that I wrote. That's what I would like to do. I would like to see that thing made because it's a great little story, and it would be fun to just get it on film.
Sure.
Yeah, for no other reason than to get it on film with no other expectations beyond that. But just to complete that, I think I need to complete that.
Okay. I meant to ask this earlier. Is there any difference? I know for me, the worst part of directing is opening night because I have no power anymore.
Right.
I'm helpless. There's nothing I can do. All I can do is sit there and hope that the actors get all their lines and then we get through the show. Is there any difference for you when you direct or when you are the playwright and you're seeing that show open in front of an audience in how you feel about
Yes.
the show? And
Yes.
so what are the differences for
Well,
you?
as a director, I'm never nervous on opening night,
Oh,
which is
okay.
funny.
Interesting.
Auditions are the worst thing for me as a director, the absolute worst thing,
Interesting.
because I hate rejecting people.
Sure.
I just want everybody to, I'm like, it's being split with 16 people. Everybody gets one performance. So that's hard. And Enchanted April was hard for that. That was the hardest part. And because there's
That you directed here. Yeah.
there's a lot of talent in this town, and it's really disappointing to think that people don't have a whole lot of other opportunities to do this
Right.
here. In LA, you don't get cast, and you're like, could you tell me now, because I'm starting, I got rehearsal, So there's that. So the auditions for me as a director are the worst. Okay. As a playwright, it's always opening night. It's horrid. And exciting, but awful. It's just this awful, like...
Because you feel the audience is going to reject the play?
No, because I wonder if I have actor-proofed my script.
Oh, okay.
It's so hard, because it's like, that's when you go, like, I have a real respect for, in a rehearsal process, for making it, for really being, like, on it with lines. If it says you are, I don't say you're. I really try hard. Now, there are time constraints, and there are other things that go on, and you end up doing those things. But my intention is always to get it word perfect.
Right.
And not every actor shares that philosophy. And so it's hard to explain to them that you spent like 7 hours sweating blood choosing that word, and there's a reason.
Yep.
And you don't get to decide that it's not that word because you're not feeling it. It's like that whole actor thing for me.
Right.
And being an actor, I know, I've worked with people like that. I mean, it's hard to work with people who are kind of loosey-goosey on the script.
Sure. Absolutely.
So that's my thing, opening night and actors.
Absolutely. Excuse me. So you've, worked in LA,
Yes.
perhaps with some recognizable names
Yes.
at one point or another. Do you have any fun or juicy stories that you can relate to us that won't get you sued?
Such a boring business, I will tell you. It is not exciting at all.
Oh, I have a hard time
No,
believing that.
it's not. It's like, I've worked with, like, I've shot a film where it's like, where you, it's very sexy business, where you're talking, and the actor, you're holding the mic for each other. This is it is like, you're like, could you hold it a little lower? Could you hold it? So you're trying to be up here with it in the shot. And then, but you're holding the mic, like, it's silly. No, I met Arnold Schwarzenegger when I was 18, but I was still in Tucson, and he was really amazing back then. I don't know how he is now. He still could be amazing. But he was the sweetest, most wonderful man, and he was learning how to ride a horse for this film he was going to do, and it was ridiculous because he just dwarfed that. It looked like a little Shetland pony, and he was so nervous on the horse, and so, but he was very, self-deprecating about it, and really his ego he was just very sweet. And then when this is not a star. I mean, I don't know. Is Days of Our Lives even on TV anymore? There was the lead, one of the leads, and he was late for the dry block. They call it dry block. When you show up and you go through the blocking before they shoot it. And he was late. And so he got on set, and I was blocked to do all this stuff.
Right.
Because I was the nanny. And he missed it. And so when they start shooting, then this was after I'd been on the show a couple of times, and he I feel this elbow in my ribs, and then it's just like, and I'm being shoved out of the shot, and I was like, it's kind of rude, and so they cut, and then the director's like, Melanie, stand there, I don't want you moving, and I'm like, okay, and then the second time, and it was like and then it was like pushing me out of the shot, and I said, and he's like, he cut it, and he's like, Melanie, I want you to stand there. I want you in the shot. And I said, I realize you want me in the shot, but somebody else doesn't want me in the shot. So somebody else needs to be maybe told. And he goes, what are you talking about? And this guy just stepped forward. Everybody in soap operas is very short. Very short. This man was 5'2", and he was a tall one.
Wow.
They are very short. They build those sets. Like I was an Amazon. I was like looking over and said, stop pushing me out of the shot. And I'm not a very tall person, but people are very tiny in soap operas, very tiny. It's funny. So he got yelled at, and then he was kind of mad at me. So then I didn't get shoved out of the shot, but this is what he was like. If I was standing here, he was like the whole time in the shot, and I'm like, I'm feeling some aggressive behavior towards you. I don't know if I should call my union. And then so they cut it, and that was my last scene for the day. And so I ran down, changed my clothes, and I was almost out the door where you can't get of the sound stage. And I hear my name over the loudspeaker, and I was like, oh no, what did I do? You know, why am I in trouble? I hate going to the principal. And they were so mad at him for his behavior that they put me in the next 2 scenes. So I was like, well, that's pretty nice to get shoved out of the shot and then I got a pay bump, and it was actually kind of nice. But it's a cutthroat industry. It is a cutthroat industry. I mean, that people can be there are a lot of people who are very sweet and wonderful, and then there are a lot of people who are not.
Right.
But really, no, I was Melissa Gilbert's stand-in for something. And I did have an audition late after I got fat with Heather Locklear. I did. I walked in and she was sitting there, like the days of yore. I was like, "Hi, remember me?" No, I didn't. I didn't say that. She didn't. But I auditioned before her, and I have to say that I went in and I did not book this role because I went in and I said, "How dare you ask Heather Locklear to audition? That you know what that woman can do, and that's just your way of saying, suck it. You're a pest." You know, you're beyond it.
So you weren't upset that she was auditioning against you? It was
No,
just the
I was
fact
upset that they were
asking
making
to
her audition. That woman has a career, and
Right.
you know what she can do, and she's not an actor, she's a personality. And you don't ask people to come, with that kind of career, you don't ask them to come in and audition for some crappy half-hour sitcom. You don't. That's disrespectful, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
So I let them know that I didn't really appreciate the way they were treating her. I thought that was crappy.
Wow.
And I was like, you either cast her or you don't. But you don't call her in to sit with 25 fat people and her. Because we all know she's going to book the role, but that's your way of saying, you better, you're not all that anymore, are you, Heather? I just thought it was so rude.
Wow.
So I didn't book that role. But I walked out feeling like, high-fiving Heather Locklear. Congratulations on the role.
I remember when I saw Harvey. It was the first time actually I had seen you on stage.
You were not alone. That was my first play here.
Yes. But I absolutely remember from the first sound out of your mouth just being astonished at.
The fact that I could have worked more than twice in my life? No.
Yes, no, just the, you were so in character. There was not you anymore. And a lot of us on stage play ourselves often. We just have other words that we're putting in there in different situations. But it was this, what appeared to me, this very, very realized character. How did you arrive at that?
I took the A train, and then I got, no. Well, that's just I don't know. I know that I won't deny that I have talent and be all whatever.
Right.
I mean, it takes that talent. But I also have worked really hard to develop a craft. And that's where the craft comes in. Because that it's consistently being able to create that and then perform it more than one time.
Right.
So it's just the craft of it, which is, I think, missing a lot. And some people just don't know how, and some people think it's overrated. And But I just think that kind of consistency in process, and it can be different for each character. Sometimes I work from the outside in, sometimes I work from the inside out. Sometimes I don't have a character until I get my shoes, and that's late in the rehearsal process. It makes the directors very nervous. But I think it's just a matter of committing to the words, to the vision of the of the director, and trying to make all of those things meet together.
Right. I heard Neil Patrick Harris was on Actors Studio a couple of weeks ago. He said something very, very interesting in his preparation for the role that he won the Tony for, Hedwig and the Angry Inch. He said he actually viewed every example he could find of other people playing the role, to pick and choose what worked well and to just reject what didn't work well. I know for me, I hate watching something else because then I'm going to get influenced by it. Or I hate, if I'm directing, I don't like my actors to watch other things because they'll get influenced by those things, so it becomes their own. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's a crutch? Do you think that's a valid way of going about finding a character and preparing for a character?
I think it's dangerous to do it for every character, but I think that it can be. I think that it can be helpful if in a really difficult character, which that role is.
Sure.
And also, like I wouldn't want to do it for something that is like for Harvey. I didn't want to see, because that is such an iconic thing, and so I can't be that woman,
Right.
and so it can be confusing, because even just the watching of it influences. It's like you observe the atom, and by observing the atom, you change it.
Right.
You change the energy of the atom. So, so I think that it can be informative in a very difficult role if it's not something that I wouldn't want to watch. If I were playing the role that Parker played, I wouldn't want to watch Jimmy Stewart do it and every other iteration do it.
Right,
I would. You have to make that role your own, because everybody has an opinion about how that role should be played. But for something so sort of obscure as that, I think that could be informative and helpful, and because it opens it up from your tiny perspective, and it's such that's a crazy role.
Sure.
So I think you really have to be judicious in applying that.
Okay. Good. Any folks here that are with us this afternoon? Anybody have a question for Melanie?
What genre of play do you like to write?
Do I like to write? Well, I don't really have a choice. It just comes out. But I like to write all of it. What I'm best at, what I can do, like without thinking, is dark comedy. So it's some horrific situation that I can make funny, and so that's what I'm best at. I'm really good at writing dialogue, and I really like to write little 10-minute children's plays. So on the opposite end of that, I very there's not much in the middle. Dramas are good. I'm very dramatic, and so there are things that are very dark, but I always have to add some humor. I can't just do Medea killing her children. I just can't. I can't. That's just not. That's not interesting, and it's not interesting for me to watch. I don't like it.
Right. Makes sense.
Have you seen any of your plays produced?
Have I seen them produced? No, they get produced. Well, that's not true. I saw a couple here, with the female on stage project or the theatrics.
The Female Playwrights Festival. Yeah.
But most times they're, like I just had one produced in Idaho.
And you don't feel compelled to go out to see them?
I do, but it's also like, it's not very practical. So can't just, you got to just let it go. You got to let it fly and be free and hope they post pictures on the Facebook.
Have you ever been in an instance like that where maybe they've recorded it and sent it to you? Or could that be, do you get consulted on during rehearsals at all?
Sometimes. Sometimes they want you there. Sometimes they insist that you Skype in. And sometimes they're like, it's ours now.
Yeah. Arlene?
Is there a play that you would like to either be in or direct sometime in the near future for PCA? Do you have a bucket list for that?
I don't. Things interest me, and I'd like to. For me, usually the decision is based on what's going on with the family and the timing of that, and that's been kind of intense the last year. And so I haven't had as much time to do as many projects as I would like to. But there are all kinds of stuff. John hates it, but I would love to do some Shakespeare, and I have submitted Shakespeare, and it has been rejected, as everybody else's Shakespeare's. No, but I'd like to do some Shakespeare in stage 2. That's what I would like to do. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever directed any of your own plays that you've written?
No, I stay away. No.
Think that's a bad idea for playwrights to direct?
I don't think it's bad for every playwright, but it's bad for me.
Okay.
Because the characters are so close to me, I have to get away. I have to let people just be. Okay. And I find that when the director and the playwright are the same person and they're in the room, actors can be very. It starts to shut them down. I did. I did, and this is like not. This is I have a full-length play called "I Found Baby Jesus in the Cat Box," and that got produced in at Pasadena Playhouse in a stage reading in their series Hot House at the Playhouse. It was a huge, big honor, and the artistic director's wife, who is like, she's amazeballs, and she doesn't, but I walked in the room and she just was like, and I was like, what? And she's like, okay, yeah, what? You go, no, what if I? And I was like, oh my God, you're a very accomplished actor with a huge, wonderful craft, and so please don't. Because I walked in the room, you're going to shut down. She's like, it's really hard when you're in the room. It's really hard. Because when they're trying to create, they know that voice is in your head.
Right.
And all you can think is, I hope I'm doing this right. I hope I'm doing this right. I hope I'm doing this right.
Right. Well, I know, I've heard several stories with particularly someone like Mel Brooks, who when they're in previews, an actor can go ahead and throw a new line in. And if it gets a laugh, it'll stay in. And Brooks will change it. Do you have any kind of similar experience like that? Have you heard actors trying different things or throwing different things out, going, whoa, that's better than what I wrote, let's keep it?
Usually for me, that needs to happen in the rehearsal,
right.
because I want to change it before they perform it.
Yeah.
But sure. But I mean, I'm totally open. Okay. Actors are like, once they say the words out loud, they know better than you do what the character is. I can have an idea in my head, but once I hand it over, and I love working with actors in that way and collaborating with them, because once they get to know the characters, then they tell you where it's like, well, this is not feeling right to me because I just came from this, or how do I say that, or what was your intention here, and it allows you to get very clear on your script, really specific changes that need to be made, because they know better than you do, and I love that.
All right. Well, we are just about out of time. Again, is there any last question that anybody would like to ask of Melanie? Go ahead.
Very much. I never things about you, I didn't know. I'll hold it against you forever. And I never thought so much about having a playwright to see their own play from the actor's point of view. And I did stage 2 here, and the playwright, I was fine until I found out the playwright was in the audience, and I dropped lines that I never dropped during rehearsal. And so I thought it was just me. So thank you for validating my crazy.
No, and don't do that, because we need to hear it, and we want to hear it. We want to hear a voice that's outside of our own head, because that makes us crazy, and that's just certifiable, and that's not good.
And on that note, we'll take our leave of you. Please join us on November 17th. We'll have PCA's director and teacher Bruce Lanning here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John. Thank you.